My life used to be a dull hum of routine, a flat, predictable line, until one ordinary evening on an interstate highway, everything shattered. One moment, I was a woman preoccupied with the mundane. The next, I was looking down at my own lifeless body, realizing the impossible truth. How can you be dead and yet more alive than ever before? I used to wonder how a bloody, injured, weak, and dead Christ can save my siblings and I from the abuses of our biological dad. Before October 22nd, 2001, my life was a meticulously constructed yet fragile facade. I was a woman defined by routine, a blend of a demanding job and a quiet home life in California. My days revolved around the rhythm of an office schedule, punctuated by the mundane but comforting predictability of evening commutes and solitary meals. I was an atheist, a label I wore not with defiance, but with a quiet, almost resigned indifference. The concept of a higher power or an afterlife felt like a distant, irrelevant whisper, a comforting myth for those who needed it. For me, life was here and now, a tangible reality that began with birth and ended with a definitive, unquestionable silence. My character was a curious mix. On the surface, I was a pragmatic and logical individual, valuing reason above all else. I approached problems with a methodical mind, always seeking the most efficient solution. Yet, beneath that sensible exterior, there was a deep-seated quietude, almost a resignation. I rarely sought out grand adventures or embraced spontaneous whims. My comfort lay in the familiar, in the structured existence I had built around myself. My hobbies were simple, often solitary: reading, long walks where I could lose myself in my thoughts, and occasionally delving into intricate puzzles that mirrored my desire for order. Looking back, my childhood painted the canvas of who I was. I remember this stark contrast of fleeting moments of pure joy against a backdrop of deep-seated unease. There were days of innocent laughter, playing with my siblings, feeling a fleeting sense of security. But those moments were often overshadowed by the pervasive shadow of my biological father's abuses. I recall the silent tears, the feeling of helplessness, and a desperate yearning for a protector that never materialized. The image of a suffering Christ on the crucifix in the Catholic cathedral, bloody and weak, often clashed with my childish understanding of a savior. How could someone so broken save us from our own pain? This early disappointment with conventional faith subtly molded my later skepticism, reinforcing the idea that answers were to be found in the tangible, not the mystical. Emotionally, I existed in a state of muted contentment. I wasn't unhappy, but I certainly wasn't brimming with unbridled joy. There was a subtle undercurrent of something missing, a vague sense of unfulfilled potential, or perhaps a silent search for a deeper meaning I hadn't yet articulated. It was a comfortable stagnation, a life lived within carefully defined parameters. I avoided extremes in both emotion and experience, preferring the predictable safety of the middle ground. My fears were practical: financial instability, the discomfort of unexpected change, the vulnerability of genuine connection. Death, for me, was a finality. It was the absolute end, the cessation of consciousness, a return to nothingness. This belief, born from a blend of early disappointment and later intellectual conviction, provided a strange kind of comfort. It meant no lingering worries, no eternal consequences for a life I considered, by and large, unremarkable. I saw no reason to fear it, nor to embrace it. It simply was, the undeniable conclusion to every story. Little did I know, this deeply ingrained belief was about to be shattered, leaving me to piece together a new understanding of existence. It was mid-evening, and the sky was glum with patches of gray clouds. I am walking on Interstate 80, looking down at the road, thinking to myself, oh, there is grass growing on the black pavement. The morning of October 2001, began like countless others. The alarm clock's persistent chirping, the familiar scent of brewing coffee, the quiet hum of the refrigerator. It was a Monday, and the week stretched ahead, filled with predictable tasks and the usual office banter. I went through the motions of my morning routine, dressing in sensible work attire, grabbing a quick breakfast, and stepping out into the cool California air. The sky, I recall, was an unremarkable pale blue, promising another uneventful autumn day. There was no flicker of intuition, no strange unease whispering at the edges of my consciousness. It was just normal. My workday was equally mundane. Emails, meetings, spreadsheets, the usual rhythm of corporate life. I ate lunch at my desk, scrolled through some news, and chatted briefly with colleagues about weekend plans. The afternoons slowly wore on, each hour blending into the next without distinction. As the clock approached quitting time, a slight fatigue settled in, the familiar weariness of a day spent in front of a computer screen. I packed my bag, exchanged polite goodbyes, and headed out into the encroaching twilight. The circumstances that led me to Interstate 80 are still a blur in their precise details, a series of seemingly innocuous decisions that, in retrospect, coalesced into a perfect storm. Maybe I was taking a shortcut, or maybe I had missed an exit. Whatever the reason, I found myself walking on the shoulder of the interstate as the sky began to turn glum, patched with heavy gray clouds. It was an odd place to be, a pedestrian amidst the roar of traffic, but at the time it didn't strike me as particularly dangerous. I was probably lost in thought, a common state for me, my mind sifting through the day's events or idly contemplating some minor logistical problem. As I walked, I remember looking down at the asphalt, noticing blades of grass stubbornly pushing through cracks in the black pavement. Oh, there is grass growing on the black pavement, I thought, a mundane observation in what was about to become anything but. The noise of the cars rushing past was a constant, almost soothing drone, a white noise backdrop to my internal monologue. There was no rising sense of dread, no chill down my spine. The world felt utterly, ordinarily real. Then, a flicker. Not a premonition, not a sign, but a sudden, almost detached thought. I lifted my head, turning to look behind me. My eyes settled on a massive big rig far behind, dwarfed by a stream of 10 or so cars that were zooming past me. It was a fleeting glance, a quick assessment of my surroundings. As I turned back to face forward, walking nearer to the grassy median, a simple, almost dismissive thought crossed my mind. I hope I do not get hit by that big rig. It was a fleeting, almost casual worry, one quickly brushed aside as I continued my stride. The very next moment, it passed. The big rig, a roaring beast of metal and speed, went by and I felt a wave of relief, a simple hoof. I even brought the back of my hand to my forehead, swiping it across, a gesture of quiet triumph. I'm so glad he didn't hit me. The tension that I hadn't even consciously registered dissipated. The sky was still glum, the air still thick with the exhaust and damp earth. Normalcy seemed to have returned. But then, the truck pulled over. Ahead of me, on the shoulder, its massive form slowed, then stopped. Why is he stopping? I asked myself, confusion bubbling up. The driver's side door swung open, and a man, the truck driver, jumped out. He started running toward me. My body froze. I just stood there, rooted to the spot, watching him sprint my way. A ripple of unease, then confusion began to spread through me. Why is he running toward me? The question echoed in my mind, illogical and unsettling. And in that precise instant, the world around me shifted. I could still see everything with stark clarity, the road, the truck driver, the indifferent blur of passing cars, but the sound, the distinct rushing roar of the traffic, the swooshing I had grown accustomed to, simply vanished. An eerie, profound silence descended, a quiet so absolute it felt heavier than any noise. The truck driver continued his lumbering, slow-motion run toward me, a bizarre, distorted ballet in the sudden stillness. He seemed so far away, his movements stretched and elongated, as if time itself had decided to play a cruel trick. He's running my way, yet he seems so far away. He appeared to be running in slow motion. That's so bizarre. The words formed in my mind, but even they felt detached, distant. The quiet deepened, enveloping everything. The air grew strangely dense, heavy with an unseen presence. Something was profoundly, terrifyingly wrong. If that's me lying there, why am I standing here? I very well cannot be there and here at the same time, can I? How can this be? How can two of me be in the same place at the same time? This is crazy. The words escaped me, a raw, disbelieving cry. In that split second, an instinctive, gut-wrenching realization slammed into me. The lifeless body on the pavement was me. And with that understanding, a floodgate of emotions burst open, from the crown of my head to the soles of my feet. Horror, terror, an abysmal sadness, an aching loneliness, a crushing hopelessness, and that pervasive, eerie silence, all rushed through me with an intensity that dwarfed any earthly feeling. These emotions I instinctively knew were 100,000 times more potent in this realm than in the physical world. A chilling, undeniable truth settled deep within me. If I were to take my own life, I would be condemned to my own personal spiritual hell, a lost soul for all eternity. Still gazing at my inert form, a new, profound understanding bloomed. I am spirit. My left palm flew to my mouth, and a raw, primal scream tore from my essence. Oh, God! Before the word help could even form, before I could utter help me, my spirit was violently, abruptly cast back into my body, and the scream that ripped from my throat was one of excruciating, unbearable pain. I lay there, on the cold, hard roadside, screaming. The agony was absolute, a searing fire that consumed every nerve ending. Through the haze of pain, I saw a man kneeling beside me. His face was a blur. His voice was a distant whisper. He was speaking loudly, I know now, but then it was as if his words were trying to penetrate a thick veil. He told me the big rig, the 18-wheeler, had hit me. He was my witness, he said, and I would survive. He promised to stay with me through the whole ordeal. The pain was too much. The world began to recede, and I felt myself slipping into oblivion. I heard his voice, now even more distant, pleading, "No, don't leave me. Stay with me. You are not going to die on me. Please, stay with me." His words, though faint, were clear, each syllable etched into my fading consciousness. Then, with a suddenness that defied all logic, poof, I was no longer on the roadside, no longer in pain. I was standing in water, just above my knees, completely nude, yet utterly without shame. A wave of pure joy, an unadulterated contentment, washed over me. I plunged my fingers into the water, splashing it high into the air, watching as the droplets, like shimmering jewels, gently descended onto my form, dressing me in their glisten. But I wasn't a naked body. My form was spirit, soft, smooth, radiating a white glow, the most beautiful white I had ever seen, with an ethereal glisten of silver. As the water droplets embraced my spirit, they greeted me with an overwhelming sense of love, joy, and peace. I was so enthralled, so utterly captivated by this exquisite sensation that I didn't think to pay attention to my surroundings or even where I was. Then, the gentlest male voice I had ever heard resonated through the space, not with sound waves, but directly into my consciousness. He said, "I want you to look up." Instinctively, I knew to look up and to my right. And then, my breath, or what passed for it in this realm, caught. Oh my. Lo and behold, I saw the most gorgeous face imaginable. Immediately, with a certainty that transcended thought, I knew I was looking at Jesus Christ. A smile, ablaze with recognition and pure adoration, spread across my spirit, and I telepathically uttered, "Jesus." He smiled back, a smile so delightful, so profound, that it radiated pure delight in my recognition of him as Christ. His long, wavy, golden-brown hair flowed past his shoulders, framing a face of ethereal beauty. His stunning, ocean-blue eyes were not merely eyes, they were twin pools of pure love and boundless compassion, drawing me into their depths. His full, meticulously groomed beard glistened with the same golden-brown hue. He appeared in a semi-human form, his skin fair, illuminated by a brilliant, white-glowing light that emanated from his very being, bathing everything around him in its soft radiance. He gestured with his hand, placing it to his chest, and telepathically conveyed, "I am God." Then, with a sweep of his hand to his right, he continued, "This is my assistant," and further, "and these are 3 of my angels." A brief, fleeting wonder crossed my mind about his assistant. He appeared as a young man, perhaps 20 years of age, with bright, fluorescent yellow hair, beautiful brown eyes, and milky white skin that also illuminated light. He wore a white gown identical to Christ's, save for the sleeves. Christ's had large bell sleeves, while the young man's had medium-sized bells. I intuitively knew they were seated, their gowns reaching their ankles, both wearing sandals. The angels, 3 radiant beings, wore sleeveless white Roman-style V-neck gowns. The tops of their sleeves, at their shoulders, were cinched with a glittering golden tie, a shimmering accent. They wore the same glittering golden fabric as a thin sash just below their chests. Their gowns fell just below their knees, and on their feet they wore glistening golden sandals. Their hair, the most exquisite shade of brown I had ever seen, was styled in elegant buns, secured at the base with the same glittering golden fabric. The air around them vibrated with a silent, harmonious energy, a symphony of light and love. Christ's gentle, loving voice resonated within me again. "I want you to look around you." My gaze shifted, taking in the vastness of the purest ocean I had ever seen. The entire body of water sparkled, not with mere light, but with an inner luminescence, like a sea of countless diamonds. It was, truly, a sea of adoration, welcoming me with an embrace of pure love, boundless joy, and profound peace. I turned, looking behind me, and saw the majestic flow of a beautiful waterfall, its cascades shimmering with an unearthly glow. To my surprise, standing behind the waterfall, fully dressed and in human form, was my coworker, Ted, the one who had expressed a desire for a relationship with me. He was smiling, a radiant, blazing smile. His hands went up to each side of his head, and he slipped them over his hair, a familiar gesture. I tilted my head to the right, a flicker of earthly confusion at his presence, but then I immediately dismissed it. It held no meaning here. I continued to explore with my gaze. To my left, I beheld the most picturesque, colorful plants imaginable. Their hues were more vibrant, more alive than any on Earth, a spectrum of impossible brilliance. The leaves on these plants were enormous, the size of full-grown giant redwood trees. Yet they swayed with an ethereal grace. They, too, saluted me telepathically, their silent greeting filled with love, joy, and peace. It was the most pleasant and enchanting embrace I had ever felt, a profound connection to all living things in this magnificent realm. Again, the gentle, loving voice of Christ echoed within my spirit. Look up. My eyes, or their spiritual equivalent, fixed back upon him, both of us still smiling, our connection a blazing communion of adoration and admiration. Face to face, eye to eye, we spoke without words, a silent dialogue of pure understanding. He then said, "Now I want you to look down." And so I looked down. Below me, on the roadside, lay my lifeless body. But it was meaningless. I felt no sense of connection to that inert form, no attachment to what was happening down there. I was completely, utterly detached from that scene, an observer of a distant, irrelevant drama. I could see the truck that had struck me, parked up ahead. I saw the California Highway Patrol, a growing crowd of people, their forms indistinct. And the man, still kneeling at my left side, was screaming in my ear to come back. Though I heard no sound, I instinctively knew what he was saying to me. I remember feeling mystified that God wanted me to look down at all, until he spoke again, his voice resonating with absolute authority. "You are going to survive this accident. You will go back." My spirit recoiled. I looked up at him, my telepathic response immediate and fervent. "No, I do not want to go back. I want to stay here with you." The thought of returning to that heavy, painful existence was unbearable. But then, he transformed. Brilliantly, majestically, he shifted from his semi-human form to a full-blown spirit, a glistening golden sphere of pure light and energy. His voice, now imbued with the power of the cosmos, echoed through my very core. "You have a story to tell. You will say no more, and you will say no less." I asked, "Did I get hit?" He said, "Yes, he hit you, but he stopped." And poof, just as abruptly as I had ascended, I was cast down. The glistening golden sphere of Christ's spirit vanished, and in an instant, the gentle caress of the celestial water, the vibrant hues of the unearthly flora, the boundless peace, all evaporated. I was back, and once again the unbearable pain ripped through me, a searing, all-consuming agony that forced another raw scream from my throat. It was a shock so profound, so jarring, that it felt like being forcibly stuffed back into a straitjacket made of fire. The transition was immediate, violent. One moment I was pure spirit, light and boundless in the embrace of divine love. The next, I was a broken, bleeding vessel. The lightness I had experienced was replaced by an immense, crushing heaviness, a feeling as if gravity itself had intensified 1,000-fold, pinning me to the cold, hard asphalt. Every nerve ending screamed. My body felt alien, a torturous prison after the exhilarating freedom. I was disoriented, nauseous, my mind reeling from the impossible contrast. The silence of the spiritual realm was replaced by the muffled, distant roar of traffic, a dull, aching sound in my ears. My first thoughts were not of relief, but of profound disappointment. No, not back here. The spiritual world had been a place of absolute love and understanding, a true home. To be ripped from that embrace and plunged back into this agony felt like a cruel cosmic joke. I was bewildered, struggling to reconcile the vivid, transcendent experience with the raw, undeniable reality of my shattered body. How could something so real, so infinitely more real than anything I had ever known, simply end? The loss of that spiritual connection, the feeling of unity and divine presence, was a grief more profound than any physical pain. I fought against it, against the returning sensations, against the very act of reanimating. As I lay there, gasping, trying to articulate the impossible, a man was at my side, his face etched with concern. He was the one who had been screaming, begging me to stay. His voice, once a distant whisper, was now clearer, urgent. "No, don't leave me. Stay with me. You are not going to die on me. Please stay with me." His words, though meant to reassure, felt like an anchor dragging me back into the very reality I wished to escape. It was immensely laborious, every muscle screaming in protest, but I managed to utter a whisper. Did I get hit? He brought his ear close to my mouth. Yes, he hit you, but he stopped. My physical body felt utterly ruined. Weakness washed over me in waves, interspersed with flashes of blinding pain. My head throbbed, my limbs felt disconnected, heavy and unresponsive. I was aware of the grit of the asphalt beneath me, the acrid smell of exhaust, the damp chill of the evening air. It was all too real, too harsh. Soon I heard the sirens approaching, the wail of an ambulance, the arrival of firefighters. They moved around me, a flurry of organized chaos. I heard them discussing cutting off my clothes, and through the haze of pain and disorientation, I begged them not to. Please, no, I croaked. The pain was still immense, threatening to overwhelm me again. Then a familiar, loving voice, not heard with my ears but deep within my spirit, broke through the cacophony. I want you to look up to the sky. In that moment, the physical pain, the noise, the fear, they all faded into oblivion. It was as if a gentle hand had been placed over my suffering. I struggled to open my eyes, forcing them upwards to see the dreary, gray clouds above. As a fireman at my feet began to cut away my clothes, the surrounding voices faded into the distance and the oppressive darkness of the sky began to flicker. Suddenly, poof! The entire sky became as white as snow, then crystal clear, transforming into a giant celestial projector. Before my astonished inner vision, scenes from my own life unfolded. I saw my mother giving birth to me, my father fainting and hitting the floor the moment I slipped from my mother's womb into the doctor's arms. Then I saw myself as a child, perched at the very top of a leaf-filled tree in front of my childhood home. My papa walked out the front door, calling my name. Lorenza! Lorenza! I saw myself looking down at him, silently laughing, one hand over my mouth, the other leaning on a branch. The next scene was all of us kids gathered around my mother's feet, talking and laughing, moments of pure, unadulterated happiness with my family. I instinctively knew he was showing me the most joyful times I had experienced. At this point, the distant wail of the ambulance became louder, breaking my focus. In an instant, the scenes in the sky retreated, as if sucked away by a powerful vacuum. The sky reverted to its glum, patchy gray. The paramedics were now preparing to take me away. No, I cried out, a sudden, desperate plea. I do not want to go with you. I want to stay here. Please do not take me. Let me go back. The paramedic at my side exchanged a puzzled look with another. They carefully lifted me onto a gurney, placed me in the ambulance, and the doors shut. I began to slip into unconsciousness, the last words I heard being, "We're losing her." I no longer believe in religion. Through spirituality, I value all of humanity and all life forms. It does not matter what they look like and where they come from. We are all as one in unity and harmony to the royal King of Heaven. It is inevitable that we all return home. Waking up in the trauma unit 3 days after the accident was less of a gentle re-entry and more of a jarring awakening to a world utterly transformed. My physical body was a wreck, battered, bruised, and screaming with pain that medication could only dull, not erase. But it was my mind, my spirit, that had undergone the most profound shift. The chaotic, meaningless clutter of thoughts that once defined my everyday consciousness was gone, replaced by an astonishing clarity, a crystal-clear silence that resonated with the profound truths I had witnessed. My hearing, once standard, was now hypersensitive. My vision, previously dull, was razor-sharp, perceiving details and nuances I had never noticed before. The woman who woke up was not the atheist Lorenza who had walked on Interstate 80. The old self, so rooted in the tangible and dismissive of the spiritual, had been shattered by the divine encounter. My priorities, once centered on routine and pragmatic concerns, now seemed trivial, almost absurd. The pursuit of material comfort, the endless cycle of work and consumption, it all held no meaning compared to the unconditional love and universal unity I had experienced. My relationships shifted dramatically. The superficial connections faded, unable to hold space for the immensity of my transformation. Family and friends, once pillars of my social world, recoiled from my stories, their disbelief and discomfort palpable. "She's gone bonkers," I imagine they whispered. I faced shunning, isolation, a profound loneliness as I navigated this new, bewildering reality. Even now, years later, the circle of those who understand or even tolerate my changed perspective remains incredibly small. My worldview had been irrevocably altered. The atheism that once defined me crumbled into dust, replaced not by religion, but by a deep and unwavering spiritualism. I no longer believed in rigid doctrines or man-made institutions of faith. Instead, I understood that God and heaven are real, a truth I knew with every fiber of my being. Christ, the magnificent being of light and love, was not just a historical figure or a religious icon, but a living, breathing presence. I learned that I am spirit, and that life continues in heaven, our true home. This revelation brought an incredible sense of peace, dissolving the fear of death that had unconsciously lingered. The universe I now knew was governed by an infinite, all-encompassing love, and we are all interconnected, part of a grand, divine tapestry. "We are all as one in unity and harmony to the royal King of Heaven," became my new creed. With this new understanding came a profound sense of purpose. The immediate aftermath of my return was a desperate need to share my experience. I tried to speak about it, to explain the inexplicable, but found only closed doors. Every church I approached, eager to share my testimony, met me with skepticism and dismissal. They didn't believe me. They thought I was mad. After countless rejections, I stopped seeking validation from external institutions. Instead, I turned inward, seeking wisdom and understanding directly from the source. This marked the beginning of my spiritual education in 2003, a journey with holiness that continues to this day. My mission became clear: to live by faith, to embody the love and wisdom I had received, and to share my story with those who are open to hearing it. I found a new calling in understanding and controlling the psychic abilities I had suppressed since childhood, though I prefer not to tap into them often, as they frequently reveal devastation. My intuition, however, became sharper, a guiding light in my new path. Integrating this profound experience into ordinary life was, and still is, incredibly challenging. The world often feels dense, its concerns petty after touching the infinite. The misunderstanding from loved ones, the judgment from those who cannot comprehend, the existential crisis of living with a foot in two worlds, these are daily struggles. I've learned to heal myself through the Holy Spirit, embracing self-healing and meditation, a testament to the direct connection I now feel. The most meaningful lesson, the core truth I carry, is that we are never alone. We are the royal, holy, and sinless family of God in heaven. Love and light are our essence, just as they are the essence of God, Christ, and the Holy Spirit. The Trinity holds the universe of all the sonship in their hearts. Therefore, we are all part of the Trinity. No one is ever left alone, and no one is ever left behind. It is inevitable that we all return home. My journey since that day on Interstate 80 has been one of continuous revelation and profound transformation. It is a testament to the fact that life, and indeed existence, is far grander and loving than we can ever imagine. My hope, my message to you is this: open your heart, listen to your intuition, and know that even in the darkest moments, you are infinitely loved, eternally connected, and destined for a homecoming beyond your wildest dreams.